Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us. I'm Brandon Waltons, the managing editor at Texas Scorecard. As you can see, we're live from the Republican Party of Texas's convention at the George R. Brown Convention Center in Houston, Texas. And joining me right now is Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. General Paxton, thank you so much for joining us. And first of all, first impressions, what have you thought so far of the convention?
Well, you know what? These conventions can never come soon enough for me because we've got so many like-minded friends here. This is the greatest Republican convention in the country. I would even rate it better than the national convention.
What do you expect to see? I mean, there's been a lot of talk about different legislative priorities and different maybe changes to the platform. What's the biggest thing that you're hearing from people when you're talking to them about what they care about here?
Overwhelmingly, the number one issue that I hear about is election integrity first and the border second. Those are, I think, the most fundamental issues. Because the reality is, if we don't deal with election integrity, if I, for instance, cannot prosecute voter fraud, then we're going to lose this state and we'll never get it back.
You just recently announced your voter fraud unit got another one, right? 26 counts, right? 26 different felony fraud cases. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, yeah, as you well know, there is no voter fraud in this country, although we're prosecuting it still. There was a conviction of a woman who was convicted of 26 counts of voter fraud. So the reality is, these cases are not easy to prove. We only have 4 prosecutors, and yet we've got hundreds of these cases going. And it's actually probably one of my biggest frustrations is supposedly the Court of Criminal Appeals in Texas is saying that we can't prosecute voter fraud anymore. That's absolutely ridiculous. It's something that we need to fix in this state.
Yeah, what's the biggest hindrance to you being able to go after voter fraud? Is it the court here opinion right now? Is there something the legislature can do?
Well, yeah, the legislature needs to go back and reauthorize this criminal statute, and then we need to change the Criminal Court of Appeals. We need to make sure that the 3 members that are up in 2 years, they're not there after the election, because if we can't prosecute voter fraud, the local district attorneys in Austin, in Travis County, in Bexar County, which is San Antonio, in Dallas, and Harris, are not going to prosecute it. We are going to have voter fraud rampant. No one's going to be enforcing the law, so we have to find a way to have this provision in our law, and the Court of Criminal Appeals has to be changed because they're striking down laws that the legislature has duly passed.
Switching topics a little bit, you said election integrity is one of the big issues you're hearing about, but also border security. You filed a number of lawsuits related to the border. I can't even begin to say how many of them are, and all of them touch on different aspects. What's the progress on those?
So we have 11 that we initially started. One was the first 100 days. So that one's over. We won it. The 2 that are most recent, we got a victory on Friday. The Biden administration was allowing criminals to come in and basically be released into the country without being detained. Hard to believe that they even want criminals to be released, but that was the reality. They were telling prosecutors they had the discretion to just release them into the country, and so we got a federal judge to say on Friday that they can't do that anymore. Second most important issue right now is what's going on in the U.S. Supreme Court. We're waiting for a decision from a case we argued on the Remain in Mexico, the asylum program that's being abused, where people come into the country and the Biden administration releases them by literally the hundreds of thousands every month. And the reality is they're either supposed to be detained under federal law prior to their hearing or sent back to their country of origin. We're asking that law be enforced by the federal government. Right now, that's not happening.
Proposal that we've heard, I think Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has said it, but also Kari Lake, a candidate for governor in Arizona, has said perhaps an invasion should be declared on the border and the state should be sending people back. Is that something you think we should see in Texas?
Yeah, look, I'm open to the legislature or the governor, executive order or law that goes in direct conflict with the decision that was made by the U.S. Supreme Court called U.S. v. Arizona. And that was a case during the Obama administration where Justice Kennedy wrote it, Justice Roberts joined it, and 3 of the liberal judges joined. It was a 5-3 decision where Arizona had tried to pass laws to protect their border when the federal government wasn't, and the U.S. Supreme Court said, you can't do that. This is all up to the federal government. I do not think that was a right decision because the consequences to the states are the federal government passes laws, doesn't enforce them, and then we have to suffer the consequences of all the crime and all the issues, all the costs associated with the border. I would love to go defend that and go see if we can get that case overturned.
Another enemy of a different kind that has gone after you specifically and some of your colleagues is the State Bar Association that has sued you essentially for filing the lawsuit to challenge and say maybe there was some voter fraud or different things in the 2020 election. What's the status on that?
So the state bar is, and this is true across the country, they're going after Republican attorney generals, Republican lawyers, anybody that believes in conservative causes. And the sad thing is I have to pay bar dues to give them the money to help go after people like me. So we're in the process of fighting them. They have no right to decide which cases I file. This is a case that 17 other states joined. This is a case that 100 members of Congress signed an amicus brief. There were, I think, over 20 amicus briefs in literally 4 or 5 days. 2 U.S. Supreme Court justices agreed with us, and yet the State Bar of Texas says, no, we get to decide what you file, and if you file the wrong case, you can't practice in Texas.
You have a Democrat opponent in November, right? Are you worried about Democrats taking back Texas this year?
Yeah, I'm always worried about Democrats taking back Texas. The reality is we have to fight every time. We have no idea what things are going to be like in 5 months. And we have, I think, real races. And I think we're all going to have to take that pretty seriously.
From a national perspective, we've heard that, President Joe Biden's policies right now with, $5, $6, $7 gallon gasoline is something that might push voters to vote Republican in the fall. You think we'll see that?
Look, I'm confident that the American people, and particularly Texans, will see the truth, but we have to get that message out there. We have to get the message out there that this is what you get when you have Democrats in charge. You get high inflation. I mean, look at where we were under Trump. We had low inflation. We had low energy prices. We were not worried about what was going on in Afghanistan and China. We had a border that was under control. So whatever you think of, whatever issue is important to you, it's gone very badly in the last year and a half, and I think we need to communicate that message and make sure that voters understand who's responsible.
Where can people who want to follow your campaign, where can they do that?
So on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at Ken Paxton TX, or our website, kenpaxton.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Attorney General Ken Paxton, for joining us. We're going to have more conversations live from the Republican Party of Texas